Here we are. Here we go. Hello, everyone. What's
Hello.
going on? I am down here because today the laptop is going to be down here. Oh, we are live. I see us going here.
We are live.
This is fantastic.
Happy
So,
Saturday, everyone.
Ryan,
Happy
say-
Saturday, everyone.
Say hello to everyone, Ryan.
Hi, I'm here.
Great. Okay, awesome. Yes. So, welcome. Hello. Welcome to day 3 of our training camp chat. As always, I am Olivia Reiner, and I'm joined by the lovely, very enthusiastic Ryan Wood. He is very happy to be here. We've got a laptop up actually underneath the camera, so I'm not going to be holding the laptop today, thankfully, but I'll be able to see your questions over on Facebook. We should also be live over on Twitter and on our YouTube page, so if you're joining us there, hello, we're happy to see you.
We got it all covered.
Yes, we do. We are super social media experts. Happy to reach you on every single platform except for Instagram.
Well, you're the expert. You're the expert. I'm not the expert.
We'll get there on Instagram one day, but for now, this is what we're gonna do. But yeah, day 3, training camp, lots to talk about. Saturday, they got the shells on today. They got their shoulder pads on, so we're getting closer to something that kind of looks like actual football. We're still a little bit of a ways off.
In fact, I was interested. That's why I asked Matt LaFleur afterward how different an evaluation is today when they just have the shoulder pads and helmet compared to tomorrow when they will have full pads, so basically your thigh pads, your leg pads. And he said just really the same thing. I mean, the thing he does like about it is that it entices defenders especially, but players not to go to the ground, not to hit low because there's no pads there. And he wants, in practice, you don't want to go to the ground and you don't want to hit low anyway because that's just asking for injuries. So, yeah, it's interesting to me that, you know, and me and Pete Doherty actually were talking about it's kind of exploiting a loophole here because by the CBA, the day after the first day in pads has to be an off day. But they weren't in full pads today. They're in full pads tomorrow. Even though it's the same thing, they're getting 2 days in pads and then the off day. It's still, by letter of the law, it works. But it is interesting. The other thing, too, Olivia, an abbreviated practice today, only 1 hour and 40-ish minutes. Matt LaFleur said that in his study, day 3, third day in a row, you're more susceptible to injury, and so he wanted to cut that short. And they'll probably go pretty long tomorrow, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Guys, you're trickling in. I'm seeing your comments. Welcome. Thank you. We've got someone here from Myrtle Beach.
Hey.
And that's in one of the Carolinas, correct?
It is.
And you lived in one of the Carolinas.
Don't put me on. I should know which one it is. South Carolina, I think.
I think so.
I lived in South Carolina. I hope it's in. Hello from Myrtle Beach. Thank you.
Everyone seems jazzed about the laptop situation, especially if you were here the past 2 days. Lots of questions. We're getting some good questions coming in, asking, let's see, Mike Daniels, the Lions. I guess we really didn't get to react yesterday. I don't think Mike Daniels had signed with the Lions by the time we had our live stream yesterday. So this is our first time really reacting to it. And he's not going very far.
No.
The Packers are going to get to see Mike Daniels 2 times, as they always get to see the other NFC North teams twice during the regular season, once at home and once on the road. Going to Detroit this year, usually not that exciting, but this will certainly make things interesting.
Well, what's the last thing that Aaron Rodgers said when he said about he started with the surprise of he saw Mike Daniels at the team facility Wednesday, and it was only later that he got the text that he got called upstairs. Last thing he said was, "Oh, I hope we don't have to play him." Well, you get him twice, so barring injury, we never know what's going to happen. But here's the thing: knowing Mike Daniels, he's been on the team since I've been on the beat in 2014. Talked to him a lot over the years. You better believe he has those dates circled on his calendar. You better believe it. He's going to be looking forward to playing his home team here at Lambeau and there in Detroit. It's going to be interesting. I think on one hand, at least he didn't go to Chicago or Minnesota because they are more of your favorites in the division. Really good defenses already, obviously. But the Lions, you need to beat your divisional opponents. The Packers need to beat the Lions, and they haven't been the past couple of years, and that's been a big part of their problem. So the Lions did not get any easier to beat, and that's something that they're going to have to do now.
So reports came out that Mike Daniels had a lot of interest from other teams around the league. My biggest question is, how are the Packers unable to trade Mike Daniels if the interest was there?
Yeah, a lot of times once you start making phone calls on veterans, especially veterans with high cap hits, it's pretty obvious to the rest of the league that you don't have to trade for him because he's going to get released. And the writing's on the wall at that point. And so teams don't want to give up assets. At that point, you know he's going to be available. You get ready to make your free agent pitch, and knowing that if they don't find a trade partner, he's going to get released. Now, I did see, I think it was Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, said that there were multiple offers to Mike Daniels that were the identical offer. Whatever that 1-year deal that he got, they were the identical offer. I would imagine those teams probably are kicking themselves right now for not giving anything in a trade. So it might have backfired a little bit. Maybe some teams around the league misjudged how robust the market actually would have been. But that's pretty common, just because teams don't like giving up assets and they can bank on a guy getting released, and that's what happened.
I'm sure we'll get some more Mike Daniels questions later on in the chat, so we'll come back to that, but I want to go back to training camp. Paul wants to know, what big differences have we noticed? Well, have you noticed? This is my first training camp. What big difference have you noticed between this year's training camp and training camps of years past?
This isn't a training camp thing as much as it's a practice thing in general, because they did this in the off-season program as well. But the way that they split up, and they have the ones on one end of the field, the ones O and the ones D, and then they have the threes and the fours and some twos on the other end, that's new. A lot of times in the past, you would see one team period going at once instead of two, and you had a lot of guys standing on the sidelines not really doing much. They were watching and observing, obviously, but not participating actively. So there, I think it's a clever way to get the threes and the fours, the guys at the bottom of your roster, more reps, because those are the guys that need more reps. The bottom of the roster guys, the developmental guys, they need the reps, and it's hard to get them the reps, especially early in camp, because this is the time of year when you have your one offense and your one defense go. In the season, it's your one offense versus practice squad. So that's been a pretty big difference. I mean, it's then just some of the ways that they've divided up the position drills. They've kind of had more of a rotation, station to station, everybody doing the same sort of thing, just at different times, and that's been new, and that's been interesting to watch as well.
Mm-hmm. Andrew has an interesting question that we've kind of addressed in the last two live streams, but not really at this level. Who is ahead, Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Geronimo Allison in the Packers wide receivers depth chart? Is it too early to really tell the discrepancies between the two, or do you see maybe one getting more reps than the other?
It is early. It's not too early. Okay. It is very early, and things could definitely change. But right now, the answer is that they're basically tied. Geronimo Allison's the slot, and he's been the first team. He's the starting slot receiver. Marquez Valdez-Scantling's been the starting perimeter receiver when they go with their 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers. That this system does. Sean McVay does that a lot. Kyle Shanahan does that 11 personnel a lot. You're going to see a lot of 3 receiver sets. Marquez Valdez-Scantling's the perimeter receiver opposite Devontae Adams. That's how it's been. And then you've got your Equanimeous St. Brown, Jake Kumros coming in. Your Trevor Davis has rotated in. But those are your top 3 receivers. So because it's been so divided. I mean, Geronimo Allison's been slot and Marquez Valdez-Scantling's been on the outside. I wouldn't even say one's ahead of the other, just because they're 2 different positions.
Mm-hmm. Josh, I believe we answered a question of yours already. You have another great question here. Are the Packers working on the short passing game? Do you see that as something that they're focusing on? They're certainly working on lots of different things. They've been working on the running game extensively. Do you see the Packers working on that aspect of the offense?
Yeah, most of their, through the first 3 days, most of their team periods have been red zone. It's been a lot. I thought Matt LaFleur said something really interesting about that today. He said that he'd never done that before until last year. It was something that Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel did, especially early in camp, doing a lot of red zone, because it limits the yardage that you put on your players' legs. And the move the ball drill, you're going up and down the field. In the red zone, you're just doing 20 yards, and so there's not nearly as much running. And they've got 8 practices in the first 9 days of camp that they're going to need to make sure that they give guys and preserve guys and give them rest. So yeah, I mean, there's been some of those bunch formations that you see in the few move the ball drills that there's been. No 2-minute warning periods yet either, which a 2-minute offense drill, which is a little surprising. I imagine they'll get into that more when they get the full pads on, but. Red zone is the thing that has stood out the most through the first 3 days of camp.
Mm-hmm. This is an intriguing question, and it's something that Tom Silverstein and I have discussed in the past. I don't believe it was on one of our live streams, but it is something that he's been thinking about. Frank wants to know, how have the Packers, or will the Packers, reduce the number of hamstring injuries that have come up? What Tom had said in the past is that sometimes these injuries come in bunches. It'll be different particular injuries that there will be lots of across the team. Is that a training thing? Does that come down to strength and conditioning? Is it something else? I believe Kendall Donnerson is out with a hamstring. I don't know if anyone else.
Jamal Williams today.
Jamal Williams also out with a hamstring. Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of guys.
Calf injuries too. I mean, you can all lump them into soft muscle, soft tissue injuries. Mason Crosby and who's the other calf injury? Mason Crosby. There's two calf injuries. One of them being Mason Crosby. Kendall Donnerson's a hamstring. Fadal Brown. Fadal Brown's the calf injury. He was new today. So those are two calf injuries. Look, my philosophy on injuries in general is that it's football. Guys get injured. The injury rate is 100% unless you're like a freak like Julius Peppers. I mean, there's so few guys that can get through a career and not get injured. It's part of the game. Do they come in bunches? Yeah, sometimes. And, you got 4 soft tissue injuries right now of the 9 players that were out today. So you don't want it to get any worse than that. And there's a ton of stuff that they do, and from a medical science perspective, to try to avoid those. But they're not completely avoidable because football is a very violent sport. So, yeah, I mean, that just kind of comes with the territory, I think.
Mm-hmm. Warren wants to know, what does the defensive line look like? Sorry if it looks like we're lagging a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on with our internet connection, but hopefully it'll catch up at some point. We'll pause if something is not going well and it doesn't fix itself soon. But we'll continue for now. Defensive line, a Mike Daniels-less defensive line. Have you seen some of the guys get more opportunities, more reps in his place? How deep are they looking? I know we kind of mentioned Kingsley Keke in the past as being someone who might now be on the radar, as opposed to a few days ago where maybe he wasn't necessarily going to be on the radar for the Packers this season. A lot to talk about in a very short answer, but what do you think about how the defensive line is looking without Mike Daniels?
The biggest benefactor so far by far has been Montravius Adams. I mean, he's full-time on the one defensive line alongside Dean Lowry and Kenny Clark now when they go base. We'll see what that looks like. They've been mostly in base, so we'll see what that looks like when they go sub and the nickel and the dime. In fact, they did go some dime today, and they went with 3 outside linebackers. They had the 2 Smiths and Rashawn Gary when they on the front when they went dime. So, but they need him to step up. I mean, they're giving him first team reps, and they need Montravius Adams to step up and be a starter now. Tyler Lancaster did get some first team reps today, a few. With Fadal Brown out, the second team defensive line has pretty much been Keke Kingsley, Tyler Lancaster, Fadal Brown for the first 2 days. I would imagine that continues. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe we saw today. Maybe Lancaster got elevated a little bit today as that 4th defensive lineman. But I think the top 3 are pretty set right now, and all of it depends on Montravius Adams performing well enough to continue getting the reps that he's been given.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to take a pause really quickly. If you guys are having a hard time seeing us, let me know. I'm going to try refreshing our Facebook here, see if something is going on. It looks like maybe it's just my computer freezing, but we'll see. But anyway, yes, hopefully. Sorry, I am crouched over here.
Inexact science.
Yes, yeah. Ryan, do you want to entertain the people? Do you have any words you'd like to say?
I'm not a dancing bear. I don't think I'm very entertaining. No, what do you want me to say? I think, like I said, the loophole of having 2 days here in pads is going to be interesting because, it postpones the first off day. I'm really curious. I was trying to watch today. It looked like, especially defensive linemen, were live off the ball, and then at contact they eased. It'll be interesting to see if that's any different when they get the leg pads on or not. How are we doing there, Olivia?
We're doing good. I think it might be there. Oh, here we go. We're back. We're back. It's a my computer issue, guys. We're totally fine. I hope you enjoyed the top of my head and that you also enjoy Ryan's little monologue there.
I try.
But anyway, we'll take a couple more questions. Aaron wants to know, can Robert Tonyan or Jace Sternberger block? What have you made of that area of their game early on in training camp?
Not yet. Now, this is the first day in pads, and they weren't even in full pads at that. So we haven't really seen it much. They just, both of those guys, they're not blocking tight ends. Let's just put it that way. Now, they do have the benefit of being able to learn from Mercedes Lewis, who Robert Tonyan said is one of the best passing and run blockers of this generation from the tight end position. I mean, he's a really good blocker and has been for a long time. So that's beneficial. But, I mean, look, they clearly like Robert Tonyan. There's no question about that. He's getting a ton of first-team reps, and he's not just getting a chance to make this roster as a tight end, but to actually play. When they go to their 12 personnel with one back and two tight ends, he's been on the field a lot. So he's getting a good look early in camp.
Mm-hmm. Josh wants to know about Kevin King, and that's someone who we spoke about pretty extensively, Jim and I, yesterday. You can check that out over there. But I will ask you, because you're new here. We haven't had you around.
I am new.
What have you made of Kevin King's return? I talked to him yesterday, and we talked about his weight. You talked to him as well yesterday. Talked about him putting on some mass in the offseason. Looks bigger. Is he playing bigger? Do you see that mass contributing anything on the field?
I don't know if he needed to play bigger. He just needs to stay healthy. I mean, that's the thing. Like, whatever he figures out, whatever he changes, whatever he does, it just has to lead to staying healthy. Because when he's healthy, he's really good. When he's healthy, I think all things considered, if everything's even with injuries, the best cornerback on this team is Kevin King. It's not. I think he's the number one. Jair Alexander's a pretty good number two, and he's a young guy with a ton of potential. But Kevin King, with that size, the speed, the length, the ability to create leverage, and his natural instincts, when he's healthy, he's really good. He's played fewer than half of his games the first two seasons, and that can't continue. So whatever it is, he's got to figure that out, because if he does, that's huge for this defense.
We'll pivot to offense. Levi wants to know about the running backs' depth. Is the depth of that position a concern, knowing that Matt LaFleur wants to run the ball as much as he does? Is having those top two guys, those guys are certainly a lock. Do you think Dexter Williams is going to be utilized as much as the Packers were utilizing three running backs for a chunk of the season last year?
Well, don't forget Corey Grant either. I mean, that's not a guy coming in that has no chance. He could make the team. He's a speed burn, ton of speed. So, I mean, they've got three guys who played in the league, counting Corey Grant. They've got Dexter Williams, who has got a lot of potential. I mean, he was a 6th-round pick, but I think there were people that were surprised that he was around in the 6th round. Thought he'd go quite a bit earlier. So, he's a rookie, so he's going to bide his time, and he's going to sit and develop. He's not going to be thrust and thrown to the wolves right away. But I think they've got a lot of depth there. They even got depth at fullback. I mean, not just Danny Vitale, who the Packers seem to really like, and he's well on the way to making this team at this point. But Malcolm Johnson's another guy too that he's played some football and he's pretty good at the fullback position as well. So their backfield in general has got, I think, a lot of depth.
Mm-hmm. Mike Witt wants to ask, outside of Devontae Adams, who has jumped out to you from the receivers? I know we've talked about Marquez Valdes-Scantling quite a bit as definitely being a standout, making a big jump for his second year here in early stages of training camp. Who else? Is there anyone else? I know there's going to be a lot of competition throughout the entire depth of the wide receivers position.
The group as a whole. I think the receiver position as a whole has looked really good. They've got a lot of guys now, a lot of youth, a lot of young guys, but they've got a lot of guys that can play. I mean, Jamon Moore had a terrific catch today over Gadar Holman in the red zone and a tremendous throw by Deshaun Kaiser as well. But, I mean, a really good catch, plucking it off Gadar Holman's helmet down the left sideline and staying in bounds for a touchdown in the red zone drill. That's a guy that's needed to flash, and he flashed today. Equanimous St. Brown has had a good start to camp. He caught the bomb yesterday from Kaiser. He's looked good. Trevor Davis has made some plays. Jake Kumro, I think he's caught a touchdown every day. And you got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, obviously, who showed what he could do last year and has been repping with the ones. I mean, that position, they could keep 7. They've done it before in the recent past. They could do it again. They've got 7 guys that are NFL players, and maybe you can count Jawill Davis, who came from the Giants and has played in the league. It's a long, deep group, and it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds going forward in camp. But I think the group as a whole looks pretty good right now.
Mm-hmm. I know during our position previews over on PackersNews.com, if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely check those out. They're still relevant, still interesting. But when we were previewing the wide receivers, we looked at Jamon Moore as being someone who's kind of still on the bubble, definitely not a lock to make the team. What have you made of his training camp so far today, especially after he's had some pretty good catches, shown some flashes in camp? It's obviously early, but what have you made of him so far?
I think it got started. He started getting going today with the catch he made, and it's too early to really know where that's going to go. I would agree that he's on the bubble. I think it's going to be really interesting to see which way he falls in that bubble. Because look, if they keep 7 receivers right now, you're thinking Jamon Moore's probably number 7. And probably Trevor Davis being number 6. So they could definitely just keep 6 receivers. And because 7 is a lot, so there's a long way to go to figure all that out. But they've got the numbers to make tough decisions, which is what you want.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think that's gonna do it for today. Thank you for asking questions, guys. We appreciate it. If I did not get to your question today, do not worry. We're gonna be back tomorrow. There's an off day on Monday, but gosh, we're going to be back. I think there's 5 practices in a row after that.
8 practices the first 9 days of camp. There's nothing Monday, but then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then family night here Friday, which I don't know if you know the plans for that yet as far as what we'll be doing. But yeah, no, it's a busy time.
Yes, we will definitely keep you posted on what we're doing for family night. I'm sure we will be doing something of some variety. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. Hopefully you guys had some fun. If you missed any of our past Facebook Lives and you would like to go back and watch them, they are all archived on Facebook. I believe they're also on our YouTube page as well. If you're not following us on our social media, make sure you're doing that, especially on Twitter. We'll be live tweeting all of our training camp practices and the coverage that we're doing over there, injury updates, whatever else you could possibly imagine. Who knows? Always something interesting going on at practice. But yeah, thank you. We will see you next time. Have a good one. No. Oh God. I think my laptop is overheating. Whew.
Good.
Let's see if it's stopped.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be a little smoother indoors.
It's hard to do it out here, but let's see.
I think it's more important what we say than what it looks like. It's my 2 cents.
I agree. Oh, no, I don't agree. I think they're both important. All right, hopefully that turns it off. Yeah, no, I think being